John McMullen was there yesterday at Lincoln Financial Field, and he's got McMullen's quick hits on our website, 973ESPN.com, after every Eagles game, John. But, yesterday, offense, defense, special teams, it was a total team victory, and they grinded out a much-needed win yesterday.
Yeah, this is turning out to be a dominant team at Lincoln Financial Field. They gave up 15 points to the best offense in football, and that's the high watermark of the entire season. In the previous games, they gave up 10, 3, and 10. So Jim Swartz's unit has been out of sight when they play in South Philadelphia. That didn't change yesterday. And it's something to hang your hat on. But as you guys mentioned, that's the positive. The negative is this is still a last-place team in a division that's a heck of a lot better than we all thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Now, yesterday, what is like the standout key? Because there's a lot of things I think if you could point at to say, man, the Eagles won the game because of this or this effort or that effort. For you, what was the difference in yesterday's game?
Well, I think the difference, believe it or not, was that flow that Doug Pederson talks about. They weren't behind 14-0, so they could run the football. From a football perspective, the offensive line dominated, particularly Jason Peters, as I wrote about on 973ESPN.com today. They were just tremendous, especially running the football. Jason Peters and Jason Kelsey specifically just dominated the Atlanta Falcons up front. And we finally saw a healthy Ryan Matthews, no tooth problem, no ankle problem. And we got that physical brand of running we thought we were going to see from week one. And you saw it in Tennessee on the same day, ironically, with DeMarco Murray. There is nothing more important for a young quarterback than a good running game. We see it every week in Dallas, even though it's a rookie running back with a rookie quarterback. If you have a good running game, it's going to make things a heck of a lot easier for a young quarterback.
John McMullen with us as we break down the Eagles and Falcons game. And, John, other than Jordan Matthews, there wasn't a lot of production out of the wide receiver spot. What did you think of Doug's answer today when he's talking about design and contour of plays?
Hey, God bless him. He's got to do something. At this point, Nelson Aguilar is fighting himself. It is just painful to watch that kid try to catch the football. And it's amazing how it's descended and what just the mental part can do to a player. Because obviously he could catch the football at USC, which isn't exactly the little sisters of the poor at the college level. And for everyone criticizing the Eagles for taking him in the first round, there are a lot of other teams in this league that thought he was worthy of a late first or an early second round pick. So a lot of people thought he could play, and he can't play. And it's not because of any physical limitations. It's because this mental hurdle has overtaken him, and it's just bad. And then you look at what you have behind him. Bryce Treggs, second week on the field, not obviously able to get him the football. That's not a surprise because Atlanta plays a ton of cover three, and that's what Seattle does, and that's designed to stop those long plays. But at least he opens up sort of the stuff inside because he can stretch the defense, he can run. And then Dorial Green-Beckham has just regressed really, really badly over the past 2 weeks, and now you're starting to see some of those whispers that we heard from Tennessee when they traded him. Everybody knows what kind of talent he is, but the work ethic isn't necessarily there. He's the least physical 6'5", 240-pound receiver you've ever seen. He doesn't fight to get off press coverage. He doesn't fight for the football when it's in the air. And right now, that's just what the Eagles have at that particular position, and it's not going to get better until the offseason.
Do you get the sense that the Eagles are at the end of the rope with Nelson Aguilar? Do they have any other options? Are they stuck with Aguilar where they're at?
Yeah, they are stuck. At one point, sort of about 3-4 games ago, you could sense that DGB was overtaking him. But then he's just gone into reverse. forget about neutral. He's going the other way. It's really, you can't throw Treggs out there. He's too small. He's limited. Josh Huff is obviously in Tampa now. We can all bring up Paul Turner to make the fans happy, but that's no answer. Right now, you got to throw Nelson Aguilar out there and hope he gets over these mental hurdles, as I said, but I just see no evidence of that happening. It seems to get worse and worse every week.
Yeah, and I guess, though, the way to kind of get away from that is the game plan like they did yesterday, John. Split the carries between Smallwood and Matthews, who 208 yards, most rushing yards in a game since Thanksgiving of 14. And then if you're going to throw the ball, slot, tight end, flat. 8 catches yesterday for Sproles. I mean, that's the way you got a game plan when you have these major deficiencies, and they finally realized it yesterday.
Yeah, and remember, though, part of it is the opponent because, as I said, Atlanta plays cover 3, and basically that's what they want you to do. They want you to keep things underneath. They don't want you to throw the football over the top, and they want you to sort of, if you are going to score, have those big, long 13, 14-play drives, which in theory makes you more susceptible to making a mistake, whether it's a holding penalty, whether it's a false start, something of that nature that sort of derails the drive. That's the whole mentality behind playing that kind of defense. So it works, so everyone's thrilled with it, but if you're playing a different type of defense that, for instance, is really aggressive in the front 7 and they're going to leave their cornerbacks on an island, well, it's not going to be as easy to run the football. You're not going to be able to do it, and that's where you need your wide receivers to show up, and I'm not sure they can. In fact, I'm kind of sure they can't. So there are going to be opponents where this game plan just isn't going to work. And at that point, the Jordan Matthews, Nelson Aguilar, DGBs of the world have got to carry their water. And other than Jordan Matthews, it doesn't seem like anybody's capable of doing that at that particular position.
And you mentioned John, Atlanta runs a cover 3. Of course, Seattle, a different story. But I want to ask you about the offensive line a little bit. Alan Barber set to return, but Wisniewski, a solid game, although Doug doesn't think he's a great athlete. He's really smart, but he may not be the best athlete. But Mike and I have talked a couple different times today about I
think
Wisniewski stole Peterson's kids' lunch money or something.
Right. I mean, what does he have to do to get a positive grade?
That was a little. You shouldn't say that. He's right, but yeah, it's rare that you actually say it. So.
How will that return shake up the line, though? Because if Barber comes back, and they just had their best run game in at least 2 years, and now they're going to shake things up again?
Yeah, it's not shaking. I mean, Alan Barber's proven that he's the starter at left guard, and that's not going to change. And if it does change, Jason Peters might come up to you and grab your throat because he loves playing next to Alan Barber. So he's the starter. There's no question about it. He's one of those entrenched guys. And Stephen did a good job, and that's what you need from backups. But it's really not that close when you compare those two players. And even this season, Allen was playing very well, at least up until the game before he got hurt. So they're going to go back to Alan Barber, and that's what they should do.
How about Peters? You wrote about him, and, he's 13 years in the league. He's 34 years old, 6-time All-Pro. I mean, here's a guy that some people the last couple of years had questioned whether or not he was at the end of the rope, He seems like a guy who sometimes he just out of sight, out of mind. You almost forget about him sometimes. But I thought he made a couple of key blocks yesterday between him and Wisniewski. I thought there was a lot of really good in between the tackle blocking yesterday, starting with Peters.
Yeah, I mean, Peters was just tremendous yesterday. It was really reminiscent of the Redskins game when the Redskins were running the football all over the Eagles, and Trent Williams sort of caved in the right side of the Eagles line time and time again. That's exactly what Jason Peters did to the Falcons. And it was sort of like old school Jason Peters. It was the all-pro Jason Peters, at least for one Sunday. But he has played well this season. He's not what he once was, where he was a no doubt about it, all-pro, a borderline Hall of Famer. But every once in a while he can dial it up and reach that level, and that was what was happening yesterday. And it was pretty impressive to watch because you mentioned, Mike, you don't think of him that much, and that's actually a compliment because he still does his job by and large each and every week. He's rarely making big mistakes, rarely giving up a big pass rush. But it was different yesterday. It was in his prime, Jason Peters, yesterday. And you can't count on that every week, but it is fun to see and remember what he once was.
Yeah, and one thing's interesting, too, is, we're getting close now to thinking about Lane Johnson now. His name's going to start getting back into the mix as well. And, we all kind of wondered, Vaitai, how he would handle or how the team would get past. And I kind of said, look, you're losing your right tackle shouldn't devastate a season. I think it might have cost them a game, but he has settled in as well. So they could only really get better adding Lane Johnson late in the year. But, it goes to show, again, that this team that the Eagles have is still young, and what they're accomplishing in at 5-4 is pretty remarkable with the starting right tackle who's a rookie, the running back in there a lot, Wendell Smallwood a rookie, the quarterback's a rookie, Jalen Mills a 7th-round pick. They're getting a lot from this rookie class here. So this is a team that is getting they're winning games without some key players, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, and that rookie class, it's a nice change of pace for having a pretty successful one. And you're right, Vaitai settled down. He hasn't been great.
Steady.
And it has been a big downgrade from Lane Johnson. But, yeah, that's a good word, steady. He's been steady since that first game and on the road where he struggled so mightily against Ryan Kerrigan. You don't see that now. And, it's not like you're going to run on the right side. As you kind of mentioned, you could kind of see the Eagles right now are a left-handed team. And one of the reasons why is because Johnson isn't there. For the first weeks of the season, they were actually a right-handed team. And they would go behind Johnson and Brandon Brooks a lot. Always say Barrett, giving Barrett a little shout-out. But and they've changed, and you have to. And that's, by the way, a tribute to the coaching staff. And Doug and Frank Wright should get credit for that because after stumbling a little bit, as anyone would when they lose a player like Lane Johnson, they've adjusted and they've given Vaitai some help, and he's settled down.
I think the biggest thing that I want to know, John, is was this a one-game anomaly, or can they continue to have the success on the offensive line?
Well, I don't think the offensive line was a deficiency for this team to begin with. It certainly wasn't when Lane was here. Now, when he left, they started to struggle a little bit. Jason Kelsey is not having a great year. Similar to last year, though, perhaps, because he started out having a poor year and had a really good stretch run, so hopefully that'll continue. But as far as Brooks and Barber and Peters, they've been solid for the most part all season. So while people, and Mike and I have talked about that a number of times, while people criticize the offensive line at times, hey, look at some of these other games. Look at Seattle's offensive line. Look at Minnesota's offensive line. It could be a heck of a lot worse than what's going on in Philadelphia. And I think the bigger issues on this offense are in other areas than the offensive line.
Yeah, and that offensive line, a big key to the victory yesterday, but maybe even bigger was the defensive effort. They're going up against one of the top teams in the league, top offense scoring-wise. They held them, just unprecedented numbers yesterday when you got the printout after the game was over there, John. Yesterday the Falcons limited the Falcons to the lowest points scored, lowest net yards, first down, offensive plays, 2150, lowest time of possession. Entering this week, they were number 1 in the NFL in points per game. They were second in total net yards. Their 11 first downs, fewest in a game since 2007 for the Atlanta Falcons, and their 21:50 time of possession, lowest since 2009. I mean, the Eagles' defense came to play yesterday, and right now, that's, again, we're looking for an identity, running the ball and playing that kind of defense.
Yeah, now they just got to do it on the road, and they got to do it in Seattle. And hey, as we talked about, Dan Quinn, Seattle guy, the Seahawks still play a ton of cover 3. So they'll be able to go into Seattle with a similar game plan, and hopefully it works. But obviously, it's a much tougher environment. It might be the most difficult place to play in the entire NFL. And this team hasn't been the same on the road. And that includes, we always talk offensively, that includes the defense, which hasn't been as bad as the offense at times, but certainly nowhere near the level they play at when they're at the link. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Crowd noise is part of it. I always talk about the offensive line. The reason Vaitai struggled so much in Washington is because you have that extra split second where you can't get off the ball as an offensive lineman because of the noise. The Eagles are going to have that going in Seattle. Might be the loudest building in the NFL. So it's going to be difficult. But there's no doubt the strength of this team is the defense. And for them to make a run at the playoffs, it's going to be the defense leading the way. And they need to pick it up on the on the road side of things.
They do, and I thought Fletcher Cox had a big game yesterday, really pushed the pile. We knew right guard was a weak spot for them. Brandon Graham continues to play well. We're still waiting for Vinny Curry, but maybe that time will come. We'll see. But Jalen Mills, that finger's getting a workout.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give Jalen Mills credit. He's a 7th-round pick, as you mentioned, but he's played a lot. He got the start yesterday because they didn't want to play McKelvin, and McKelvin was forced into the game. And by the way, except for the double move, and I know everybody's killing him, and they should, he was great. Other than that,
he gives a good soundbite, John.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's an entertaining guy as well. But Leo is always an entertaining guy. But they need him out on the field. The hamstring issue, Jalen Mills. It's sort of like talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Julio Jones, he got some numbers, but it was almost like maybe it's something about Lincoln Financial Field because he had 2 huge drops in the fourth quarter. And one was really, really difficult, but it's a ball he usually comes up with that could have changed the whole impact of the game. So, hey, the Eagles gave up some receptions, like a 35-point score. I always say in the NBA, losing by 20. That was Julio Jones yesterday, and you got to give that wounded group because Carroll came in with the hamstring, left with the concussion. McKelvin's got the hamstring. They at least held up and were able to do some things against a really, really good offensive unit.
Eagles defense at home, only 3 touchdowns all year. They gave up a rushing touchdown against Cleveland back in week 1, a passing touchdown to the Vikings in week 7, and Atlanta had won yesterday, but the Eagles defense at home has been excellent. And by the way, let's give a quick shout out to Kenyon Barner in the special teams. He had 3 kickoff returns for 38 yards average there, including that 52-yard return.
Let's give it to Dave Fitt because I'm convinced Pete Thompson, Mike Gill, and John McMullen could get a 40-yard kickoff return for the Eagles.
Now.
Maybe we'll lateral to each other, and then Mike runs the ball. You catch it, John. Give it to me. I'll get it to Mike, and then he goes the rest of the way.
You're giving me too much credit. You think I can run 40 yards? Come on, man.
Of the 3 of us?
All right.
Josh wants to be involved so he can take it to the house.
97.3 ESPN. John's in studio tomorrow. We'll take a look back at this game, what we learned, and, of course, all of the Week 10 action in the books. Wraps up tonight with Giants and Bengals, and we'll be all over that one tomorrow as well. John has more on the website, 973ESPN.com. He's at JF McMullen on Twitter. All right, John, we'll talk plenty tomorrow, pal.
All right, thanks, guys.